What's that lurking on the horizon?
It looks like a vast, formless cloud of gameplay.
Perhaps Steve will have the details.
Do you want blood? Is pure and unadulterated violence the sort of stuff you want on your 32-bit console? Well, if you answered yes to both, be ready, as Mortal Kombat 3 is almost here for the PlayStation and the PC. Versions of the game for both platforms as well as the 16-bit consoles will be shipping in time for Christmas, and the PlayStation version in particular is looking like being a pearler. I know the term arcade perfect is somewhat abused, but this is what the developer is promising, and for once with the PlayStation, there is hardware which should be capable of delivering. Could be good.
Big title, big hype, and possibly a big deal. Although at this stage it's hard to tell. Johnny Mnemonic will be released by Sony ImageSoft as an interactive adventure which uses full-screen, full-motion video. This means that a lot of the gameplay will have a certain Dragon's Lair feel about it, which quite frankly worries me. Still, the plot is way cool as it comes from the crafty cerebellum of William Gibson, who's in this edition as part of the This Is It feature, if you want to check it out. But I digress. In the game, you play the role of Johnny, a data thief who stores his stolen goods in his brain. Unfortunately, your most recent mission has gone horribly wrong as you find yourself hostage with a lot of highly sensitive data locked in your noggin, and lots of people are out there and interested in extracting it by any means necessary. The developers are promising multiple gameplay paths for this one, a bit of a trend at the moment, and there are supposed to be multiple endings which should increase the replay factor. Johnny Mnemonic is also supposed to employ a random event generator which will place the objects you need to complete a game all over the playfield, so that you won't be bored by the patterning of events should you start the game more than once. Now, despite the fact that the interactive movie genre has taken a beating recently, Johnny Mnemonic could still be worth a look when it arrives in time for Christmas.
Ripper. Forget Phantasmagoria and Harvester. Ripper is the new cyber psycho adventure from Take-Two Interactive. Take-Two were the crew responsible for the lamentable effort that was Hell, a cyberpunk thriller. Now this is hardly an encouraging sign, as Hell was a pretty disappointing effort, which was devoid of anything meaningful in the gameplay department. But Ripper still looks pretty damn interesting on the basis of these rather tasty and gruesome screenshots. The premise seems a little contrived, but it may be fun anyway. You are Jay Quinlan, a crime reporter in New York. The year is 2040 and some malevolent bastard is running around with Mum's best carving implement, slicing and dicing hapless citizens when perhaps he should have stuck to carrots. Unlike Hell, Ripper is supposed to be non-linear with different possible gameplay outcomes. Ripper will also feature some pretty big names in the industry, such as Christopher Walken, Karen Allen, John Rhys Davies and Burgess Meredith from the Rocky Epics. Ripper will also feature Jimmy Walker, who was the idiot who screamed dynamite all the time during the Afrocentric 70s sitcom Good Times. Ripper will not be a straight port of the Jack the Ripper mythology which inspired it, as there is going to be a strong cyberpunk and technology-based component to the game. But this doesn't mean it will be any better than Hell. Ripper should be released before Christmas.
Guess who I saw on the way in?
Who?
Mark Hamill.
Wow! Uh-oh, you don't think he's coming to get me for bagging Wing Commander 3?
Careful, he may use the Force.
Recently, Belgian heavy metal warriors Channel Zero toured the Antipodes, selling out and slamming on stage big time. The disc caught up with the band's lead singer and vocalist Frankie Van Dam for a brief chat about cranial convulsions.
Let's say about 5 years and a half ago, we actually have put up Channel Zero. At first we were a five-piece band, and after the two first albums we actually decided to stop with the second guitar player because he didn't really fit in the whole thing, you know. So finally we kept going on as a four-piece band. Let's say the first two albums were more, let's say, thrash metal orientated, and now the Unsafe album is maybe a little bit more metal, maybe our real roots, you know. So the Unsafe album actually shows more what we actually have in our potential.
Execute digital transfer. Network. Start. Intelligence.
This is it. This is it. This is it.
And this is it.
This is it.
This is it.
Geologists tell us it has taken thousands to millions of years to crush these rocks into this sand. Its most common ingredient is silicon. It is the second most abundant substance on Earth. In the last 30 years, we have taken this sand and created the most incredible invention of our species, a machine that could solve almost any problem put to it. Futurists, such as Hans Moravec, state that we may have indeed created out of sand a possible replacement for the human species itself.
What you have in effect is an ocean of data. And what you want to do is teach your children to navigate it.
It's valued at about $34 billion. To create some perspective, that's about 1.5 times the size of the agricultural industry in Australia today, which will turn over about $22 billion. So it is a very, very big industry.
You've only got about 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left. These Intech 486 XLCs, yes, 25 megahertz.
Information technology is essentially like an expanding puddle that is drowning every other field. So the question is not when your field, not whether your field will be engulfed by computers, but when and in what way. And so, so everybody's going to feel an impact at some point if they haven't already.
Plus you get the battery, you get the carry bag, the AC adapter, optional external keyboard capacity. What more can I say? Plus a screen.
All of the world's information is being put into this form. Shopping catalogs, textbooks, movie guides, CDs about cricket or any topic you might imagine. And it's far more compelling than the other way of getting at this information.
Well, cyberspace is where the bank keeps your money, and that's why it's important for you to have some sense of it. It's also the place where a telephone conversation takes place. It's that electronic, non-geographical realm that we've quite unwittingly created since, say, the middle of the Second World War, I would say.
The information highway allows individuals to pursue their interests, to find the topics they care about, to match up with other people with common interests without regard to where those people are located.
This kind of interactive educational technology should go first to the poorest schools, that the ghetto should get them first. Because, you know, the upscale people already have, their children have modems and they have computers. Where you need to put it at the absolute bottom of the socioeconomic ladder and give those people access to it.
Virtual reality is definitely one of the most interesting mediums that I think that an artist could work with, because it parallels with, I think, what an artist is trying to do anyway, to create a virtual reality.
Well, I've been interested in the notions of extending the body's performance parameters beyond its mere physiology, beyond the local space that it occupies. Virtual reality systems means that you can interactively immerse yourself into the computer software.
What now is the future for the human race in the advanced digital age? Is the future in good hands, or is it now located in the microchip? Are we about to invent ourselves electronically, or will we merge so intimately with our intelligent electronic systems that we are, in fact, creating a novel species? Perhaps it is time to pause, think, reflect, and plan.
Execute digital transfer.
This one is more like a real film because there are real sets. We're shooting it on film, but when actors came on the set, they'd be a little apprehensive, just as I was. It's fear of the unknown. And after a half a day or so, they realized that it's more like conventional filmmaking than they might have imagined. It's not just a rehash of Wing 3. I mean, the Kilrathi War is done, and now the storyline to me was much more intriguing. I was so thrilled to have Malcolm McDowell back, John Rhys Davis back, Jason Bernard back, wonderful new actors like John Spencer from LA Law and Presumed Innocent, and I mean, he's in everything. He's in Forget Paris, you know. But I think it's a little bit more cerebral. It's a little bit more, instead of just, you know, obviously there's space combat, but there's also like almost spy missions where you have to go in and figure out where the hostages are held and get to where the hostages are held and bring them back. Live theater engages the audience more in a way, or at least to the actors it does, I don't know, than movies. This is almost like a step beyond that, where they can see it through your eyes, control your character, or think about decisions that you should make. I find it really intriguing, and the people that I've spoken to, or the fans that come up and say, you know, I really love the game, and I played it, and I enjoy it, and my kid plays it, and so forth. There's sort of a bond there because they've become a part of you. So now you have gamers coming up to me and giving me advice. You shouldn't have done this. You should do this. And or I played it this way, and I don't really think it's the way it should be. So, you know, they rightfully have, I mean, before people would come up to you and talk about something you'd done, and they weren't involved in that process. You know, I read the script, there's my arc, and I'm going to do it this way. Now we've involved the audience in such a way where they're very proprietary about that. They have an opinion. They think this was wrong, that was wrong. They said, oh, you shouldn't have never even filmed that. Blair would never do that. So, like I say, it's like tearing down the walls between the performer and the audience. This one starts questioning the moral center of the character. You know, you sign up, you line up, you fight the war. This one now is starting to ask questions about, was the war right? Was you know, I think it's a test of your integrity as well as your intelligence. I thought it was amazing that they would go in this direction because, you know, usually you find a pattern, it's successful, and you repeat that pattern. This one, you know, you go for broke and say, well, let's give them something that's based on the same thing but really brings into question a lot of different things that we didn't play on in Wing 3.
Ian Large was the executive officer of Victoria's first bid to establish a CMC, Cooperative Multimedia Centre. That first bid, along with 16 out of 18 bids nationwide, was not accepted. We caught up with Ian to discuss the reasons for the bid's failure, as well as future plans for the Victorian CMC group.
I've been involved in multimedia for the last 25, 30 years, I suppose. I started off at the BBC. Then came out here and worked for the ABC, and I worked for the Australian Opera, not as a singer, but as a technician. Then have moved slowly into the audio-visual side of things, I think, which is the precursor of multimedia, and I've been doing that ever since.
We subject every game we review to our rigorous
and often destructive
testing program.
As a result, our approbation is an ironclad guarantee of quality.
Now entering Sector 5. All Conventional weapons ineffective. Secure and deploy your secret weapon.
3D Biomotion is the power behind Mindscape's new skull cruncher, Savage Warriors. It looks mighty fine, as we're all very picky when it comes to new entries in the fight sim genre. Find out what Cam and Shane think of it, then make your own decision.
I am the mighty Rigel, undefeated through countless galaxies.
FX Fighter and Savage Warriors, PC CD-ROM. It's not easy being a PC-owning fighting game fan. You wouldn't think a decent one-on-one beat-em-up was that much to ask for, but for a long time the pickings have been extremely thin. Sure, we can now play excellent conversions of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat 2, but fighting games haven't hung around waiting for the PC to catch up. The state of the art is now 3D polygon-based titles like Virtua Fighter and Tekken 2. But things are looking a little better with the release of two new 3D fighting games for the PC, Argonaut's FX Fighter and Mindscape's Savage Warriors. FX Fighter starts out well. The intro and superstructure graphics are pretty cool, and the bouncy music is a cut above average. The usual detail options are available, and the game runs smoothly at full detail on a DX266 with 16 meg. There is some sort of plot to justify the fighting action, but I recommend you take the time-honoured fighting game route of ignoring it and jumping straight in. The first hurdle is the keyboard. I found the default layout next to unusable, ensuring my first bout was a less than auspicious debut. Luckily the keys are user definable, so if you don't have an alternative, all is not lost. In any event, I strongly recommend the use of a joypad or digital stick. After my anticipation, I found FX Fighter's relatively simple AI, sometimes dubious collision detection, and messy animation extremely disappointing. Okay, so the AI poses a challenge on the higher settings, and the collision detection is mostly fine, but it's a conceded pass. As for the animations, to my VF Tour custom dies, the poor character construction and some questionable palette and texture choices only highlight FX Fighter's chief failing. It's not so much that the characters don't move smoothly or realistically, although there is room for improvement there as well. It looks more like Argonaut have used bad martial artists for their motion capture data in the first place. The net result is messy and confusing movement that robs FX Fighter of one of the main benefits of the 3D perspective. There is definitely some gameplay hiding in FX Fighter, but it takes a joypad and judicious tweaking of the comprehensive detail options to coax it out. It's not an enjoyable game if it's running slow, so be prepared to put up with untextured surfaces and a smaller window if you're running anything less than a 66. I found Kiko, one of the two female characters, best to use. Her moves are ideal for combo play, and her projectile weapon is handy for removing your opponent's few remaining pixels of health at a distance. FX Fighter encourages combo play in general, multiple hit moves being rewarded with a display and bonus points. While not genuine 3D like FX Fighter, Savage Warriors offers some of the smoothest fighting game animation on the PC. In all respects an unusual game, Savage Warriors gives players a choice of a run-of-the-mill 2D view or an immobile 3D view, neither of which can match FX Fighter's floating viewpoint for freedom. Despite the lack of camera movement, the well-handled motion-captured animations and detailed character models make Savage Warriors the more attractive game to look at. On first impressions, anyone could be forgiven for not giving Savage Warriors a second glance when out shopping for violence. The packaging piles cliché on fighting game cliché, and the install process is a fighting game in itself. Rest assured that the game well and truly exceeds expectations. Essentially, it's a fighting game like any other, but Warriors promises and actually delivers some neat extras, not only in the graphics, but in the gameplay as well. But it's the graphics that will impress first. The game maintains a remarkably high standard of presentation, with more than the usual measure of subtlety, and dare I say it, taste. It offers various detail options for lower spec machines, but I must admit I found the game was simply less immersive when not in SVGA mode. Still, the VGA graphics are adequate to say the least, and the game runs tolerably well on a DX33 with 8 meg. In a daring departure from PC fighting game tradition, Warrior's non-configurable keyboard controls proved both comfortable and effective. The game supports joysticks and joypads, but the keyboard is a more viable alternative than usual. On the minus side, the characters don't have a large variety of moves. On top of your regulation punches, kicks, and Mortal Kombat over-the-shoulder throws, Each character has only 3 special moves. This will limit the game's long-term appeal somewhat and is a significant black mark. Perhaps to compensate for the lack of moves, Warriors features some novel gameplay ideas. Some are mere gimmickry, but others, like the clever weapons handling system and the ability to hang one-handed from bits of scenery and kick your earthbound opponent in the head, are pretty cool. There's also a cute replay function that allows you to view your latest victory while you control the virtual camera in real time, a novelty that wore off pretty quickly. Savage Warriors and FX Fighter are very different games, likely to appeal to different sorts of fighting game fans. My preference is certainly for Savage Warriors. Despite its quirks, it's quick, pretty, violent, and compared to FX Fighter, very cheap. At around half the price for just as much game, I'd check out Savage Warriors first.
Defeat me, and my planet shall be yours. The most powerful weapon in the universe. Lose, and you and your civilization will be destroyed.
Your average sleazebag photojournalist has an enviable role in society, enjoying a position of high esteem and public trust, second only to politicians, tapeworms, and other intestinal parasites. So, you'd think that the game-playing public weren't going to wet themselves over a game where you get to be one of the flash gun-carrying swine.
For you yet, but don't worry, I'm looking out for you, alright? So just hang in there.
Of course, if you thought that, you'd be completely wrong. Everybody deep down has a gossip-mongering streak a mile wide and just yearns for the chance to indulge the healthy desire to be a complete bastard. My initial impressions of the game weren't so hot though. When I copped a look at the box this came in, I thought to myself, here comes another croco stimpy. But I was wrong. Paparazzi is not just another flawed piece of multimedia dross, it's actually not a bad game. Your role is to take on the persona of one of 6 different photographers who have 2 weeks to make a fortune by taking photos of the 24 different celebrities who inhabit the mythical media mecca of Tinseltown. You've got to find them at that moment where they're looking their worst. You know, the everyday star hassles like getting caught drink driving, cheating on their wives, getting whipped by Nazi bondage mistresses, stealing shoes off poor children, that sort of thing. All of these celebrities are based on real-life media icons, and I wouldn't be surprised if Activision find a sack full of lawsuits waiting for them when people such as Zsa Gabor, Elizabeth Taylor and Nancy Reagan hear about this libelous little number. There's a surprising amount of real-life content in this game. The makers were not in the slightest bit afraid to satirize the darker and more twisted elements of the drugs and money-crazed Hollywood fame junkies.
Hey, you like ducks? I got a great duck imitation.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this game gets taken off the shelves because of our glorious new computer censorship laws. Can anyone spell draconian, boys and girls? Fireplace channel. Alright, now that I've been dragged down off my soapbox, let's talk gameplay. The interface on this is pretty simple, and there's not a hell of a lot of interactivity. Mainly you just sit back, relax, and channel surf the 6 TV stations looking for clues, and answer your phone in case one of your friends has heard something juicy. This is all pretty entertaining stuff, so you don't really ever get the feeling that not much is happening. And on the occasions where you do find out about some dirty deeds going down, there's a real feeling of tension related to spying on the participants and getting the right shot. Many a frustrated cry of "Dope!" echoed around the building after I'd used all my film just before the really juicy stuff happened. The best shots get the most money, and if you want to sell your soul for the big bucks, you've got to take a few risks. To succeed, you've got to find the dirt on the stars, and to help you find out, you've got an online guide to the various entities floating around Tinseltown.
I am the alien.
They've even helpfully included information on the alien that's been going around mutilating cattle and having sex with Buicks. It's true. I read it in the Weekly World News and they'd never lie to me. So, what are the downers attached to this game? Well, I don't know exactly how long-lived it'll be. I could be wrong, but I was starting to get the feeling that I'd found a lot of the content after a night of playing. And with that content, a lot of it is pretty funny, but some of the nothing's happening here sequences get really repetitive really quickly. But I'm going to give Paparazzi a happy stamp for managing to get some decent results out of QuickTime. You still get a dinky little FMV window, but it's larger than most QuickTime boxes, and it actually updates at a half-decent speed. Mind you, this was on a DX4, so lesser terminals beware. All up, this game gave me some hefty chuckles, and I still feel like playing it to find out everything I've missed. I wonder what's through the round window today.
There's a bear in there. And people with games. And a Star Trek Omnipedia.
There must be a connection. Run a full diagnostic.
This little number informs you on exactly how much of anything, if anything, or anything, that we could possibly stuff in your gob. Yibbida yibbida, no fish for me, Rex. Do you dare to find out information on the characters of Star Trek that you just can't find out on the telly? Well, your pleas have been answered because Shane's discovered the Star Trek Omnipedia. You can find out stuff like why Worf's breath smells like burnt sandpaper, and who gave Jake Sisko such a bad hairdo. Well, along those lines anyway. Forum 3 was held on the 1st of July in Adelaide, and the focus was trade and investment. The forum helped members of the multimedia industry to identify and access appropriate government programs, to tackle the problem of getting product to the global market, and to identify ways of finding finance for multimedia product development. For people who could not make it to the conference, the proceedings are available on CD-ROM that is compatible with Mac or Windows. The opening features a video of the address by Miss Winnie Peltz, Chair of the Department of Arts and Cultural Development, South Australia. The question and answer section is presented as an interactive interview. There are a list of questions on the screen. First you select the question that you want answered, then you select the person you want to answer the question, and bingo, there's the audio of your answer. In the delegates section, there's a list of all delegates that attended the conference. This section is enjoyable to use as you can select a delegate by name, sort the delegates by state and territories, or search for an individual by name. The presentations section gives you access to a number of the presentations that were made during the conference. For each presentation, you can either read the paper, listen to the audio and watch the slides, see the video, which is just a short section, read the abstract, or print the information. The CD is a good idea. It means that those who could not make it to the forum can review details of the proceedings. The Forum 3 CD is $50 and is available by phoning 06 276 2017.
Shane and I would like to point out that we deliberately make these intros as humorless as possible in order to make our comedy section seem even funnier.
Look, no punchline.
Billy Connolly appears courtesy of Polygram Video, and if you'd like to see more, the video is currently in store now.
Holy shrieking fanboys, Batman, it's the Street Fighter 2 manga movie.
They could never withstand the ultimate martial art. Eki Thump.
In this installment of the disc, Siri does the movie Thang with Australia's own Russell Crowe as he checks out his virtual reality inspired new flick from the director of Lawnmower Man, Virtuosity. Could be good. I love this movie. I love this movie. I love this movie. As you can guess, my view towards this movie is reasonably pleasant. And why not? Awesomely animated slugfests containing the world's favourite fighters. Yeah!
We hope you have enjoyed Disc Issue 5.
And remember, if you've got complaints, questions, hints and tips, or maybe something for the showcase section, send it into the disc.
Don't make us come and get it.